Okay, good evening. Thank you all for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee Thursday the 5th of October. I'm Caleb Tomlinson, I'm the Councillor for Bamber West and I am the Chair of this committee. Committee members and members of the public are reminded this meeting is being streamed, recorded and streamed live to YouTube. If you're attending this meeting because you're a member of the public, you have 4 minutes to speak and you will be timed. And we'll confirm when your time runs out and then we'll tell you to wind up. Voting will be undertaken by a show of hands this evening, the good old-fashioned way. I'll begin with some housekeeping. Please, can you ensure your mobiles are on silent? We're not anticipating a fire alarm drill, but if the fire alarm does go off, should leave via those doors there. Okay, if I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, we will start with the young man on my left.
Hi, I'm David Whelan. I'm the Council's Head of Legal and Procurement.
Ben Story, Democratic Service Officer.
Unsworth, Councillor for Broadfield Ward.
Matthew Farnworth, Councillor for Seven Stars.
Councillor Phil Smith, representing New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor David Shaw, representing Howick and Priory in Penwitham.
Councillor Peter Molyneux, Sandbury and Walton Ward.
Councillor Hayden Williams, representing Leyland Central.
Good evening, Councillor Green, Councillor for Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Good evening, Councillor Elaine Stringfellow for Lostock Hall and Vice Chair.
Good evening, Catherine Thomas, Planning Manager.
Hi, Elizabeth Hindle, Head of Planning and Enforcement.
Okay, thanks everyone. I have had a message off Councillor Will Adams, who works for the NHS, who is running late, but he is going to be joining us. Apart from that, I don't have any apologies for absence, Ben.
Everyone else is present, Chair.
Okay, do we have any declarations of interest on this evening's agenda? No? Okay, I have read and agree with the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of September. Can I have a second, please? Thank you, Councillor Stringfellow. Can we go to a show of hands if you have read? Don't forget, if you weren't here, you have to abstain. Okay, Dave, can you give us the outcome of that?
Yes, that's carried unanimously, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Kath, can we have appeal decisions, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've received one appeal decision in the last period since last committee, and it relates to Penwitham Residential Park on Park Road, Stricklands Lane in Penwitham. It was an appeal against an enforcement notice that had been served by the council. The inspector has considered all the matters that were raised and has decided that the appeal is dismissed and the enforcement notices are upheld. There was a minor correction in terms of one of the descriptions of development, but suffice to say that we were successful in serving that enforcement notice.
Okay, thanks for that, Kath. Moving on now to item number 6. This is a call-in, AB InBev UK Limited, Cudale Lane, Samlesbury. Kath, if you would like to present this item, thank you.
This application has been submitted by InBev for the erection of a wastewater treatment plant, which comprises a technical building, a methane reactor, various tanks and plants and associated works. It's to be sited at the InBev brewery site at Cudale Lane. The application site is to the front southeast corner of the current site. The application is a minor development, but it's been called into Planning Committee by Councillor Gleave for consideration of the visual impact of the development, the proximity to Cudale Lane, the impact on the street scene and the impact on residential amenity. So you can see on the plan there in front of you that the application site relates largely to the front bottom corner of the existing brewery site, although there are 2 further areas that are highlighted in red triangles, which are proposed biodiversity mitigation areas. So the site area of the southeastern part of the site is about 0.4 hectares, and currently that part of the wider site is part hard standing and a part 2 metre high screening bund. And you'll be able to see from that plan that it's quite separate from the nearest residential properties, which are approximately 150 to 200 metres away, and there's intervening screening, woodlands and landscaping. So at present, wastewater from the brewery is piped to the Blackburn wastewater treatment plant, and you can see the relationship between the application site and the wastewater treatment works. But the level of trade effluent which requires treatment before it is fed into UU is already getting towards the agreed limit, and UU are uncomfortable regarding accepting additional wastewater. So the applicants are obviously looking to expand their production on site to ensure that the jobs are able to be retained at the application site here, and so have been investigating the possibilities of treating some of the wastewater themselves on site. And so to do that, a variety of plant and equipment is required. And if you look at section 5 of the report, I think that identifies some of the plant that would be needed, and hopefully the plan in front of you shows the site as you would be looking from Curdale Lane. So there is a variety in terms of some low-level buildings and some sort of larger tanks size development with a maximum height of 13.3 metres. And you can see that the height of the tallest piece of plant does not exceed the height of the trees on Curdale Lane, and nor does it exceed the height of the buildings on the existing site. In fact, it's quite considerably lower. So the proposal is at present on the site from Curdale Lane, there is a bund with tree cover. And it's proposed that inside the site, some of the bunds would be reprofiled to enable this plant to be installed forward of the existing buildings. Obviously, it will result in some tree loss, but the trees in that area have been surveyed and several of them are subject to ash dieback anyway. And there'll be significant understory planting as part of the scheme to mitigate any impact. So this shows the site largely from the bund, so inside the site looking towards where the proposed plants and equipment will be. You can see that the majority of the area is hard surfaced, and this is taken from standing on top of the bund. So the proposal here is to effectively allow the brewery to process some of the water and filter the wastewater on site prior to discharge to UU. So there'll be a pre-treatment work that removes some of the particulates. They will then monitor the pH of the effluent. Any biogas released will be flare burnt on the site. And effectively the water will then be pumped to UU for final treatment and cleansing before discharge to the watercourse. So the issues to consider here are obviously the issues raised by the councillor, but also the Greenbelt policy as the site lies within the Greenbelt. But our policy in the local plan at G1 indicates that the large-scale previously developed employment sites within the Greenbelt will be permitted to expand within their curtilage. And so for that reason, the development is considered to be acceptable in principle. The impact in terms of landscaping, it's proposed to landscape enhance along the site frontage so that once this is operational and the new tree planting has effectively filled in any gaps in the existing tree cover, it will be well screened from the road frontage. There has been a visual impact assessment that accompanies the application, which says that the majority of the views of the InBev site, when seen from distance, this plant will seem, insignificant in terms of the wider view of the full site. And I think what we've got to bear in mind are the economic benefits of the scheme in terms of job retention on the site, and obviously protection for an established employer. Those are policies in the local plan that encourage us to allow businesses to thrive, and again, something that the NPPF looks at. We have looked at the application site and the proposal in relation to the nearest heritage assets, and that's been assessed, and it's felt that there'll be a very, very minor impact in terms of heritage assets, which would be outweighed by the public benefits of the scheme. So I think overall it's felt that any negative impact in terms of visual amenity or in terms of loss of trees can be mitigated on site, and there will be an enhancement in terms of biodiversity with the two areas that are showed in the red triangle where there will be significant mitigation planting. I think that's it in terms of a summary, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to Planning Committee, Catherine. Thanks for your detailed report. Right, we don't have any objectors wishing to speak on this item. We don't have any supporters wishing to speak on this item. The ward member who called it in isn't here, but we do have the agent, Dominic Page, via Teams. Dominic, did you wish to add anything to that report by Catherine?
Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me okay before I say anything further?
Well, you're blowing the roof off, but yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, I'll try and keep my voice down. Good evening,
that's
everyone.
Better.
I've prepared a very brief sort of speech just to run through some of the key points, and I think Catherine's probably mentioned most of these points already. So if it would be helpful to members, I can certainly run through what I've prepared, but happy just to continue otherwise.
Okay, then. Well, what I'll do, Dominic, I'll open it up to committee, and if they've got any in-depth questions they'd like to ask you, would you be willing to answer the questions?
Absolutely, yeah. That'd be fine from my side of things. One thing I was going to just ask was whether I can actually just share something briefly on screen just to corroborate exactly where the plant is, because I don't want there to be any confusion about which trees are going to be removed. I thought that might just help any discussion around visual impact. I don't know if that's possible for me just to put up an image.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that's popped up and you can just see the aerial.
Yeah, we can see that.
So I think one of the photos that was shown in the presentation was sort of looking at this sort of brown fronted building here, and the red line sort of appeared to indicate that these trees were going to be removed, but actually the trees to be removed is this sort of clump over here. If you can hopefully see my cursor. Mm-hmm. And just to make the point that all of these mature trees around the sort of outer boundary, particularly fronting onto Curedale Lane, all of these trees will be retained. So there's no tree loss proposed onto the frontage, onto the Curedale Lane itself, or along the eastern boundary there.
Okay, thanks for that, Dominic. Okay, I've Councillor Hayden Williams wishing to speak on this item, and then I have Councillor Mrs Mary Green, and Councillor David Shaw, and Councillor Matt Farnworth. Councillor Williams, up first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Those on the committee have known me for a while will probably remember that I used to run a brewery, albeit on a microscopic scale compared to this one. But obviously, I'm aware of a lot of the processes that are used around wastewater, and obviously, processing your own wastewater before going to UU can only be a good thing. One thing I just want to clarify: we said it was a flare stack. Are we actually the methane or the gas that's coming off it? Is that actually burnt before it goes out, or is it just basically just released to atmosphere?
Dominic, can you answer that?
I can, Chair. Yes, it is burnt. It's a low-level flare stack. Yeah.
Right, that's smashing. At least we're not releasing gas straight into the air. Right, smashing. Yeah, part of the reasons this was actually referred was actually it would damage the street scene or whatever. Looking at the details in front of us, it's like I say, it's a tiny part of the actual plant itself. It's within its own curtilage. The surrounding trees that are going to cover it up, it's not as high as the existing buildings, but not going to see it. So I can't see any, from the report that's presented to me, I can't see any reason why it shouldn't be any other decision for approval. So I shall move approval.
Okay, Councillor Williams, thanks for that. So I've got a proposal for approval. Councillor Mrs. Green.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just got a couple of concerns. On paragraph 8.4, it mentions these grade 2 listed buildings, Rowleyfold and New Southworth Hall. How will that impact on them? That's one question. It says about 100 yards, 100 metres from those. And also this removal of these 58 trees, quite a number of trees. I'm just a bit concerned. Developments always say that they're going to replace the trees, but these whips, small trees, saplings, are no good because half of them die and the rest take about 15 years to grow. So we could do to have in the conditions that we get mature trees to replace those trees that's been removed, if not 58, but a good number to shield this new development. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mrs. Green. Can we condition mature trees being put in place of trees that have been... Yeah, please, Catherine.
So if I just come back to both of Councillor Green's comments. So in relation to the heritage aspect, obviously, as part of the application, we've consulted our heritage advisors at Growth Lancashire, and they've looked at all the information submitted by the applicant and also the location of the properties, the list description and the relationship between the properties and the site. And what they've concluded is that given that the setting of the listed buildings, the wider InBev complex is so prominent in the setting, this small amount of plant in the context of the wider site will have very, very little impact on the setting of the listed buildings. In fact, in one case, they've concluded it will have no impact. In relation to one of the other buildings, they've identified a very insignificant impact. Now, just because it's insignificant or it's minor doesn't say that there will be no harm. So what we then have to do is we have to do the further test to see is the harm outweighed by the public benefits, and it's a balancing act. And in this case, the public benefits of the development are substantial in terms of treating wastewater, and so they outweigh the harm. So that's the issue. As far as we're concerned, the tests, the statutory tests in terms of the heritage assets have been met by the development. In relation to the removal of trees, yes, there is a proposal. Obviously, there are some trees that are going to have to be removed to make way for development, and that is quite clear in the report. Now, those trees have been assessed. Many of them are not of good quality because they're either self-set trees or they've got ash dieback. So those trees, and also because the canopy is very tight, they're planted together, there isn't a lot of room for those trees to grow and flourish. So by allowing a new landscaping proposal and planting on other parts of the site as well in terms of mitigation, we will overall provide benefit. And whilst it says whips in many cases, some of those are to go under some of the existing trees to bulk it out. And I think when we look at the landscaping scheme as a whole, it is a nice balanced scheme.
Are we happy with that, Councillor Green? Yeah, thanks, Catherine. Councillor David Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions just to clarify things in my own mind. First is, this is a treatment of water before it goes to United Utilities. So it's not that United Utilities can't cope with the volume, it's that they can't cope with processing. But it is going to go through to United Utilities. It's not going to be processed and then directly out into a source. Okay, thank you. The second is about the flaring. my understanding, and I think the agent has helped with that, if we're giving off methane, for example, that will be burnt in the atmosphere to carbon dioxide, but there's no way of scrubbing that. Well, there is a way of scrubbing it, but they're unlikely to add scrubbing to the stack, because the intention would be at some stage to redirect that methane into heating within the plant generally. Is that correct?
Dominic, can you help with that?
I believe that's the long-term objective. I'm no engineer, I'm afraid, so I can't give you all the technical detail, but my understanding is that the flare stack is effectively an interim sort of arrangement until such time as any gas could be recovered back into the brewery's main system. Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Shaw?
Thank you for that. And the final query I have, I suppose, no, it's more of a comment. The idea of the changing of the boundary treatment, so there's a replanting of trees. Admittedly, there are additional tree areas. Trying to disguise structures within a site only really works during the summer at the best of times, because unless you've got purely evergreen trees. Because as we've seen with some of the photographs, and if you go out there at the moment, the trees are beginning to lose the leaves and you can see through into the site anyway. So it won't be a matter of purely how many trees you put in there. It's going to be the types and the mix and what else you're doing for biodiversity. That said, I'm happy to second the approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Farnworth, did you still want to come in?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So it's clear that United Utilities can't sustain the process. I think, I'd just like to echo what's already been said in terms of the employment opportunities and the favourable job retention. That I think that's key. So it's clearly in the public interest. It's within the existing brewery site. We've already discussed the enhanced biodiversity. So I'm happy to go to approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Farnworth. Right, okay, we've had a proposal, Councillor Mulliner, and then we're going to close down this debate, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Could I just give an apology for Councillor Glee, who was meant to be here this evening, and unfortunately due to work commitments she couldn't make it. So if you can accept that, thank you very much. Yeah, and from my point of view as well, I think the concern was that on the site itself, where we were looking for landscaping, I think was key to this. It was mentioned about, Councillor Shaw just mentioned about the winter side. So would, just a bit of clarity, would it be, would we still have the cover during the winter or not? That's just one thing. And the other thing was, as far as the landscaping, I think we're talking about 15 years or so in this, which seems an awful long time. Is there no way that we could get that a quicker period than that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I think what we're looking at here is that it is clear that it is not possible to screen from the road by landscaping the InBev site. And these proposed plant currently is so much lower in scale than is already on the site, and it's below the existing tree canopy. And yes, I agree with you, if they're deciduous trees, then in the winter you're going to be able to see the InBev site, but you already can. So it's not going to worsen the existing situation. It is a previously developed, industrial complex in a rural location, and no amount of landscaping is going to screen a development of that nature. But what we can say is the landscaping scheme that we've had submitted with the scheme will help in the future to fill in gaps that are in the existing tree cover to ensure that there is a thicker, denser tree screen along that front boundary, and will add in terms of biodiversity, in terms of the species, etc., that are going to be included, to enable a scheme that delivers some enhancements.
Okay, thanks for that, Catherine. Okay, Councillor Molyneux, yeah. Okay, so we've had a proposer for approval, Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor David Shaw. Have we got any other proposals? No, okay, so if we can have a show of hands for approval on AB InBev UK Limited, Cewdon Lane, Salisbury.
Yes, Chair, that was carried unanimously.
Wonderful. Okay, moving on to item number 7 this evening, Withygrove Park, Brindle Road, Bamber Bridge. Catherine, if you could once again take centre stage on this one.
With his presenting his image.
That was all.
So I'm not sure we can get back to it now. Fabulous. Thank you. Right, thank you, Chair. So this application is for Withygrove Park on Brindle Road in Bamber Bridge. It's a council application and it's for the installation of an 8.9 metre high slide unit within the park. So within the setting, to the sort of north east.
It's just not coming.
Oh, what's happened there? Sorry.
Technology.
Come on, chaps.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So to the northeast is the leisure centre and the associated playing fields below the play area. You can see on the plan where the closest residential properties are in relation to the play area itself. So the proposal here is to replace a sort of badly damaged sort of play equipment unit, which I'll show you a photograph with shortly, with a proposal for a sort of a multi-purpose slide unit as per the plan here. So it's effectively designed for children of a variety of ages with various levels within the equipment, with platforms and access steps, but obviously it does have largely covered sides for safety. And the overall footprint would measure about 9.2 metres by 1.5 metres, and as I said, with a maximum height of 8.9 metres, and it would be constructed of durable materials and sort of cater for all ages. So the need has arisen as a result of fire damage to the existing play equipment in the park, which now is roped off and unsuitable for children to use. So really we want to see if we can be in a position to replace this with something that adds to the facilities that children have in that area. And we can see from the plan that I showed originally, it is in accordance with the council's policies because it's of a reasonable distance from residential properties. It's within an existing play park, so there should be no undue disturbance to nearby residents. It's allocated as green space, and basically the policy says that if you're replacing an existing piece of equipment with something better or something of a similar ilk, then that's policy compliant. So on balance, we feel this is a really good scheme. I think that's all we can really add on that one, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that presentation, Catherine. Seeing as it's our own application, we don't have anybody, the applicant isn't wishing to speak. I've got no objections. Just before I open it to committee, is it okay for 60-year-old children to play on this? Because that is a great piece of kit, that. All right, I'm going to open it up to committee. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I presume this has come to us because we are the applicant as a council. Because, yeah, for me, it's very simple and straightforward. It's something which was tragically vandalised previously, which I think was utilised by the local community of all ages, I'm sure, Councillor Tomlinson. So, yeah, for me, this is a big positive for that community and the wider one. It looks something which will be a lot of fun. And I'd hopefully like to see the mayor going down the slide at some point. So I would like to propose approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Unsworth.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, as far as I can see, it's straightforward. It'll encourage healthy lifestyles, so it fits in perfectly with what we want young people to be active. And currently it's an eyesore that's unused. So it's giving the message that we care about the young people in Bamber Bridge. It's got no impact on the openness because it's already within an enclosed space. So I will support its application.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Unsworth. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I'll be supporting the application, but it's a question which is probably nothing to do with the application. But I know it was subject to an insurance claim. I just wonder if that was successful. David might be able to answer that one.
I can't help you with that, unfortunately.
They're all shaking their heads, Councillor Smith. They can help.
I'm fine with that. As I say, it's nothing to do with the application as such, but I was just interested as I'm in the middle of a large insurance claim myself.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Just as an afterthought, I'm not quite sure that I understand this megaphone and why it should not be amplified and so forth. I can see why you wouldn't want to amplify it, but I'm just not sure what it is.
Thank you, Chair. I think our environmental health colleagues might have been somewhat confused by the specification on the plans because it does show sort of elements of interactive play for children, one of which was a megaphone, and I think they were concerned whether it would be a real megaphone so that it would amplify children shouting and screaming across the park, which obviously we wouldn't want to encourage, but it is just a toy megaphone, but there is a condition attached just in case.
Councillor Shaw, are you going to have a go on the megaphone? No. Are you happy with that answer? Do we have any other proposals on this application? So I've had a proposal for approval from Councillor Will Adams, seconded by Councillor Kath Unsworth. If we can have a show of hands for approval, please. David?
Yes, Chair, that's carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Moving swiftly on to item number 8 this evening, 16 Watkin Lane, Lostock Hall. Kath, you are centre stage once again.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this application is for a change of use to hot food takeaway. It was a retail use previously, and the scheme includes the installation of an external flue to the rear. So for those of you who are perhaps not so familiar with the location of the site is shown in the red rectangle that's infilled here, and it's within the Tardygate district centre, but it's a corner unit in a terrace of 4 properties. The next property in the terrace is a fish and chip shop. It's on the corner of Horton Street, and the unit wraps round the corner of Horton Street. And the district centre extends in this direction up here, and you can see the car park for the district centre in this location. So to the rear of the site, there's what we could describe as a ginnel or a 10-foot passageway and an enclosed rear yard, so there would be the facility to have sort of waste storage within the rear of the yard if necessary. But Horton Street is a typical terrace street with terrace properties directly onto the pavement. The property itself has a self-contained flat at the first floor. So the proposal is for a change of use with no external alterations to the property. So this is the property onto Watkin Street Lane, and this is the side return onto Horton Street. And the only external alteration is the erection of a flue to the rear here. Now, the property next door has recently changed its extraction system and has these 2 metal flues to the rear, which actually don't benefit from planning permission at the current time, but that is a matter we're seeking to try and resolve. So, as I said, to the rear, there is a 2-bedroom flat, and you can see that there's an access door at the back of the flat here onto a flat roof. So there is the potential for that to be used for amenity space.
What spec is that?
So this is a photograph of the property, and you'll see that on Horton Street there are bollarded restrictors to prevent access onto Watkin Lane, and Watkin Lane itself is a classified road, but the only access to Horton Street is from the rear. I think there is very little information with the application in terms of what type of takeaway would be proposed, but the opening hours are 4 to 11:30, 7 days a week. And we don't have details of staff numbers, but the building itself would restrict that. But one of our concerns when you look down Horton Street, and we've now conducted several visits to the property, is the level of car parking on Horton Street and the difficulties that would be experienced were customers trying to call late night at a takeaway, because obviously this road here, there is no parking available on the main road because there's parking restricted signs on the carriageway outside the takeaway in both directions. There's no turning head at the top of Horton Street, and there's no through route. So any vehicles calling, and whether that's customers or delivery vehicles, would have difficulties in terms of manoeuvring and parking in this area. And for that reason, although the application is policy compliant to change to a takeaway in a commercial centre or district centre, we feel that there are issues in terms of the impact this development might have in terms of vehicle movements late at night, comings and goings in this very restricted area. And you can see this is the characteristic of Horton Street. The properties are right onto the pavement. So whilst the Highway Authority have not objected to the application on highway grounds in terms of highway safety, we feel that it is probably the case that using the property as a takeaway with extended opening hours will result in noise and disturbance and amenity issues for residents late at night. And also we feel that the potential to put a flue on the rear elevation, because it's quite prominent when you're looking down Horton Street. I don't think I've got that view. It was my previous slide. Let's see if I can go back to it. On that flat roof there, it will be very visible in the street scene. The flues on the adjoining property are very visible in the street scene. As I said, they don't benefit from planning permission currently. So the application is sort of down for refusal. You can see from the nature of Watkin Lane, it is extremely busy and well trafficked. And what we wouldn't want to encourage is vehicles calling and parking half on, half off the carriageway at night if there's nowhere, easily for them to park. And so for those reasons, we've actually recommended a refusal for this application. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Catherine, well done this evening. Another in-depth report for us. Okay, we don't have anybody wishing to object to this application. We don't have anyone wishing to speak in favour of the application. The 2 ward members, one of the ward members is on committee, the other 2 didn't want to speak because it's down for refusal anyway. I know how to chair this committee these days, Councillor Whelan, Dave. And we have Councillor Karen Walton, who is a neighbouring ward member, wishing to speak. If you'd like to come, you know what to do, Councillor Walton, if you've got 4 minutes, okay?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the committee tonight, and thank you for the officers for a very comprehensive report.
I'm Councillor Karen Walton. I represent Farrington West Ward of South Ribble Borough Council. The planning application for a change of use for 16 Watkin Lane Lostercall to a hot food takeaway is not in the ward I represent, but in a neighbouring ward, and residents have contacted me over their concerns of the impact of the approval of such a change in use will have such an adverse effect on the neighbouring residents of the Tardygate area and the residents of the Lostercall area, Farrington West. The Tardygate District Centre forms part of Policy E4 of the current South Ribble local plan, which states that the council will improve and control the mix of uses in existing local centres which provide convenient daily shopping needs. The area of Tardygate Centre from Coot Lane to Victoria Street already provides 10 hot food takeaways, including a cafe and a bakery. So does the area really need another hot food takeaway? The property is situated on the corner of Horton Street. I don't know when the photograph was taken, but it must have been very early on a Sunday morning, because it's never like that. It's always busy with parked cars everywhere. And it's, as said from the pictures, it's bollarded access onto Watkin Lane, and the only vehicle access is from Berry Street. This is similar to Lindy Street and Sefton Street in the area, which are also cul-de-sacs, so parking in this area is at a premium. The premises is also close to two major road junctions, a Pelican Crossing. There are double yellow lines along the B5254 Watkin Lane and Croston Road, which also provide parking restrictions. Parking in the area for residents is already very limited, and vehicles are constantly parked on pavements, on the double yellow lines, in the ginnels to the rear of the properties, often blocking access for residents, service and emergency vehicles. The library car park is often used for parking vehicles using the local businesses, and restricting parking for library uses. The application has no provision for staff or customer parking in the area, or for delivery drivers, already causing problems with inappropriate parking in the Tardygate area. The approval of the change of use would have a serious impact on the lives of nearby residents in a very residential part of the Tardygate area, and will be contrary to the South Ribble Local Plan G17 and Core Strategy 17, which seeks to protect pedestrians and highway safety, and seeks to reduce the number of parking spaces to below the standards set in Policy F1 of the local plan, as this application would compromise the free flow of traffic due to the lack of appropriate parking in the area. Policy B1 also states that the application complies with the requirement for access, parking and servicing, which will not adversely affect the amenities of nearby residents. The opening hours from 4 to 11 p.m. 7 days a week would also have an adverse effect from nighttime vehicles, manoeuvring, parking, door slamming, and could possibly encourage antisocial behaviour in the area. And there also is a primary school about 400 metres away, and if it was open from 4 o'clock, could encourage people to eat unhealthily. The smells from the extractor fan to be installed at the rear of the property, and the lack of provision for outside space for commercial waste bins will also impact on the lives of the local residents. I hope that the committee will support the officer's recommendation to refuse this application for change of use tonight. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Walton. 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Well done. Right, the agent isn't here, the applicant isn't here, so I'm going to open it to committee. Councillor Will Adams, Councillor Phil Smith, Councillor Mary Green, Councillor Peter Molyneux, Councillor Hayden Williams, in that order, please. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I better keep it brief then. I think when I looked at the application, I think I was a bit querying why we were going for refusal. I know the area quite well and frequent it quite a lot. But in terms of, I agree absolutely with Catherine. Thank you for your report. Again, it was very detailed and useful. It would potentially bring harm to residents or people using the establishment, and I think the risks associated with it, particularly with the late night usage of it in terms of cars being parked there and things to use the takeaway would also impact residents as well. So I do think actually the office's recommendation is the right one. And I think, there would have to be a lot of changes for this to be acceptable in my view. And I don't think that those changes would be, they would come down the road, to be honest, because of the high waste problems that this potential application could cause. So on that basis, I will propose refusal for this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Phil Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll get to the point a little bit quicker than Councillor Adams. I would like to second that proposal. Certainly with regard to these flues at the back of properties like this, which other houses, local housing, have got to live with and look at. I have a pet hate for those. I've spoke against them quite a few times at planning, to be quite honest, because they do look horrendous and people have got to live with that. Be interesting to see what happens with an application when it is submitted about the next door, won't it? So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Mrs Green.
Yeah, it's just basically really what everyone said. I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Walton. It's not suitable. There's no sufficient access. There's no parking. The proximity to a school is a dangerous thing. I know a lot of councils have now put conditions on for altering the times to say 5 o'clock instead of 4, so children are already away from school by that time, because there's a big issue of obesity and what have you with children that we need to keep an eye on. It's lots of amenity to the local residents, because a lot of local residents live in Houghton Street and all the other streets around there. There could potentially be smells from the flue stack, and also the visual impact of the flue stack, which is contrary to G17. So I too think I'm thinking towards refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what people have said, and obviously this is a retail premises at the minute, when the retail premises are normally open 9 till 5. This is a completely different prospect of, and effectively, the intensification of this particular area. Looking at some of the photographs, I am, what's the word I'm looking for? Disappointed that highways haven't mentioned anything, because this is right outside a zebra crossing with hatched lines. So where, if it was a whatever type of takeaway it is, where the hell are people going to deliver to? Also looking at it as well, I can't even see where the rear yard is and waste. How are we actually going to get rid of the waste side of it as well? As a rear yard for waste, but obviously it's in a suburban area as well, so we want to keep it as clean as possible. And like I said, there just is no parking there for commercial vehicles to deliver, and also more usual vehicles to take away. So again, I would support refusal.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. And finally, Councillor Mullinor, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Walton covered nearly everything you could possibly think of. It was really a comprehensive report from Councillor Walton there, and obviously members of the committee have pointed out a number of things as well. I think the two reasons for refusal that we've got from our officer encompasses most of the concerns that we've shown, and I too would go for refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mullinor. Do we have any other proposals on this application this evening? Nope. Okay, so it's down for refusal. It was proposed by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Phil Smith. Can we have a show of hands for refusal, please? Councillor Dave Whelan, can you give us the result of the vote, please?
It's a unanimous vote for refusal, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. Thanks for your attendance this evening, ladies and gentlemen. 10 to 7. Well done. Okay, we'll see you all next month.